This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and today we're going to look at a more affordable ThinkPad model. This is the Lenovo ThinkPad E450. Now, the E series used to be the ThinkPad Edge models, and now they're just the E models. And what they are is that they're really meant for small business and anybody who's kind of price conscious, but you want the basic ThinkPad features like the really excellent keyboard, the very good trackpad with the nav point right here, a fingerprint scanner, and we have a matte display here, and it's full HD, 1920 by 1080. This is a 14-inch machine, the E450. They also make the E550, for those of you who want the same thing with the 15.6-inch display. At any rate, starts around $521. That's pretty darn cheap for a ThinkPad, and our pretty nicely configured model is around $730 with the full HD display, a Core i5 CPU. We'll get into it all, and we're going to look at it now. All right, for a change, we're looking at one of Lenovo's more affordable ThinkPads, this little matte black rectangle of joy here. This is the ThinkPad E450. Like I said, this used to correspond to the Edge line. Lenovo doesn't bother with that distinction anymore. It's gotten a lot thinner since the days of some of the ThinkPad Edges we looked at. And honestly, it's a pretty good machine for the price. For those of you who are into the whole ThinkPad ruggedness, the excellent keyboard, the very good trackpad with the nav point and all that sort of stuff. And the no-nonsense upgradability of this particular model is also nice. You don't want to spend a whole lot of money. A lot of ThinkPads are obviously quite expensive. They're designed for businesses who have the budgets and expect the things to last for the 3 to 5 years at least that businesses hold on to their hardware. So this guy starts as low as around $520, and for our pretty nicely configured model, it's around $750, and I think that's probably a configuration a lot of folks would like. You might want to go a little lower end on that, CPU and all that sort of thing. And the nice thing about it is you can upgrade stuff later, like your RAM and your hard drive, or you can switch it over to an SSD, that sort of thing. So it's a system you can grow with and you can get into without spending a whole lot of money. It's sturdy, shows fingerprints a little bit. It's the usual matte black thing. It's an inch thick, so it's not too darn thick, really, as laptops go. It weighs 4 pounds. Usually, you gotta look at the more expensive laptops. That cost around $1,000 to start to drop the weight down for a traditionally designed laptop, that is. 2-in-1s with the hinges often can weigh more depending on the brand and the model and that sort of thing you're looking at. This is just a traditional laptop. But when you open up the screen, that's as far back as it goes, which is fine for everyday use, but it's not going to lay flat like some ThinkPads. It doesn't do the 360-degree hinge thing like Yoga's do. On the side here, we have our 2 USB 3.0 ports, a full-size HDMI port, and gigabit Ethernet, something you just don't see every day anymore on smaller laptops. Rectangular charging port right here uses the usual Lenovo 45-watt compact charger, and take this little cover off right here if you want to use the one-link dock, which adds 3 USB ports. Ethernet, which, well, that's a little less exciting. You already have it on the body, and audio out again. It's more for the convenience having it on your desk. Ventilation over here, lock slot, a USB 2.0 port that handles all the time charging, so sleep charging. And there's our combo mic headphone jack, which you can use in conjunction with the 720p webcam. And the SD card slot is in the front. Been a while since we've seen that sort of thing, but there it is. Usually they're on the sides these days. Nothing on the back as you would expect. Bottom. This is also a little bit different. A lot of 14-inch and 13.3-inch fairly light machines, you have to take off the entire bottom cover if you want to get to the serviceable parts. This has 3 screws, and this section, you can see the outline clearly, pop off. The battery is nominally sealed inside. You do have to take off the entire bottom if you want to get to this 47-watt-hour battery to service it. And usually we don't take these things apart to show you the internals real time. We just splice in a photo because it takes some time to get the whole bottom cover off. But with this one, because there's only these 3 screws right here and you pop off the door, we're going to show you in real time. Now these, after you undo these screws, there are some pretty fierce plastic clips here that are going to give you a fight when you go to yank it off. And these are captive screws, so you'll keep turning them until you hear it start clicking, and then you've got them loosened all the way. Captive means that they don't come out, so you don't lose them. So there's a little grab hole over here, and we're going to start grabbing and fighting with it. Since I've taken it off once already, it's getting easier to do now. And there you have it. So it might require more force than you would expect. Inside, there we have the 2.5-inch drive bay. This comes with a 7,200 RPM drive. By default, that's a conventional hard drive. You can get this in 500 gigs, a terabyte capacity. If I was you, I would upgrade this at some point to an SSD drive. You can get aftermarket SSD drives now as cheap as like 129 bucks to 150 bucks for a 256 gig SSD, and it's going to make this machine feel a lot faster. But for those who need a lot of storage space, still there's something to be said for the conventional hard drive. We have 2 RAM slots here, and you can order this with 4, 8, or even 16 gigs of RAM. Our model has a single 4 gig module. Now this over here is a evil little piece of technology because there's something missing. It looks like an mSATA SSD port, doesn't it? And there's a little screw where you would screw down the SSD, and it looks like a connector. Now that's just the solder lines there for the connector. There actually is no connector, so you can't do anything with that port. And this is the Intel 7265 dual band Wi-Fi AC with Bluetooth 4.0 module right there. So pretty easy to service, pretty easy to get to, and at least in the case of this model, which is the latest generation, 5th generation Broadwell motherboard, we have a dummy area for an mSATA drive. Plenty of ventilation here at the bottom. Now this is an Ultrabook, so it doesn't use high voltage CPUs. It's the usual 15 watt. It's not going to get too hot or too noisy anyway, but clearly they got room for ventilation, and they're giving you ventilation here. Has Intel HD 5500 integrated graphics. Now Lenovo does mention the possibility of low-end AMD Radeon dedicated graphics, which would be switchable with the HD 5500 graphics, depending on the task you're using, but I haven't actually seen that machine for sale anywhere in stores. I've only seen it with integrated graphics. All right, open it up and you get that familiar ThinkPad look. First, let's talk about the display. There is also a 1366 by 768 matte panel available. This is the 1920 by 1080. That's a full HD matte panel. Neither of these is a touch screen, though. And they are TN panels, but as TN panels go, they aren't really bad at all. First off, there's not much glare there because it's a matte screen, and you can see that it doesn't get terrible looking for quite some time. Now we're starting to see the little inversion, but that's pretty far closed. You're not going to be using it that far closed. And it looks pretty good going all the way back here, other than the fact that some glare is setting in. So as TN panel goes, it's not so bad. Viewing angles, you know, it's not going to be IPS-like, but even so, on TN panels, side viewing angles are not really much of an issue. And in person, I can tell you that it looks better than it does on screen here. So not a bad display at all. It's not going to be super wide color gamut. It's not going to be super bright. It's adequate for indoor use. This is not for you folks who sit outdoors at bright cafes in the sun so much, although the matte coating on the display is going to help with that a lot because you're not going to get a lot of reflection. You're not going to notice that piece of spinach between your front teeth if you just had lunch or something like that. On the keyboard deck, it's all ThinkPad goodness. The lovely AccuType keyboard, the smile-shaped keys, the really nice deep key travel. This is a typist's dream, this keyboard. However, it's not backlit. Notice there's no little backlight symbol on the spacebar. Usually you hit FN plus spacebar on a ThinkPad if you want to turn the backlighting on. That is something you don't get here. Happily, black keyboard with bright white masking. It's fairly easy to see, even in dim lighting. And we have Lenovo's usual quite good trackpad here with the discrete buttons that you can use with the nav point up top if you want. Also have a fingerprint scanner, a little nod to big business, which is interesting since this is really meant for small business, but I guess anybody can appreciate security and not having to remember a bazillion passwords because you can tie them to the fingerprint scanner instead. Now we're running Windows 10 on this, and interestingly, Lenovo made this available with Windows 7 and Windows 7 Professional in the case of this model, and you can order it now with Windows 7 or Windows 10. I guess because really there was no touchscreen option, they figured 8.1 really wouldn't be the best fit, and it would be a pretty easy upgrade path from Windows 7 to Windows 10. In fact, like I said, this one didn't ship with Windows 10. We put it on here, and that was a very easy upgrade. It's free until the end of July 2016, so you have some time to do that if you happen to pick up one that doesn't have it pre-installed. And because this has a conventional hard drive, not as fast as an SSD when it comes to installing software, and because we're making a bigger jump from Windows 7 to Windows 10, it took about an hour to do the upgrade, but honestly, it was really flawless. We ran Lenovo's updater first to get all of the updated drivers and stuff like that. It just worked nicely, and we still have Lenovo's Power Manager right here on the taskbar you can see, and it was pretty seamless, so definitely something in its favor. Now, in terms of performance here, It's an Ultrabook, so you expect Ultrabook-like performance. Since it has a hard drive, that brings down benchmark speeds. Now, PC Mark 8 is not so biased in favor of fast storage, so we scored 2568, you can see right here for the home accelerated test, and that's about par for the course for a Core i5, which is what we have in here. It's the Core i5-5200U, Intel Broadwell 5th generation CPUs. You get a Core i3 option for those who want to save some money as well. There are still some 4th generation Haswell machines floating around. I do recommend Broadwell if you can with an Ultrabook, just you'll get somewhat better battery life. Now on PC Mark 7 right here, which is much more influenced by fast storage, you can see the score was 3040. And usually we see something closer to 5,000 with the Core i5 Ultrabook. And again, the reason is the hard drive in here. Even though it's a 7200 RPM hard drive, it's pretty quick. It doesn't have a caching SSD to speed up load times or programs or anything like that. Boot times, it's going to hurt a little bit. For Pi, it computed Pi using W prime in 19.8 seconds. It might be a second slower than I would have expected for this machine, but that's not really a big enough deal to worry about. In Geekbench 3, it scored 2500 single-core and multi-core 5115. Again, a little bit lower than the 3000, 6000 we see on some of the faster Core i5 machines, but not bad at all. Now, in terms of multimedia, this actually has JBL audio and stereo speakers, and lately Lenovo's been impressing us with pretty loud and clear speakers, so we're going to play one of our videos so you can hear it for yourself. Alright, so here we are on our website, Mobile Tech Review, and let's take a look at our Windows 10 walkthrough video and play that so you can hear it and see it. That's 60% volume, my God, right? This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. This is Windows 10. This is the final version here. Those of us who were in the Windows Insider program got to try it out early, and we're getting the final build about 2 weeks before the rest of the world will be able to get it on July 29th. Now, we've looked at Windows 10 a couple of times, and it's changed a lot since then. The last time we did those are some loud speakers, yeah?
It was still very much
decent display. It's perfectly acceptable for watching movies. You're not going to get that dreamy IPS, super sharp, glossy look that you would on a higher-end laptop, but it's perfectly adequate in terms of colors and contrast. It's contrast about 500 to 1 on this display. And the sound is just crazy on this thing. So how about battery life? It's an Ultrabook-y kind of experience here, 14-inch, 47-watt-hour battery. It's not fantastic. It's okay. It's not bad. It's about 6.5 hours, which is where a lot of, honestly, Core i5 Ultrabooks are at in terms of battery life. So not a super Energizer bunny, but decent. And Lenovo offers the ThinkPad X250 and the T450 for those of you who want actually removable batteries and modular, larger batteries that you can swap it for longer battery life. Of course, those are going to cost you a bit more, but given the competition here, it's acceptable battery life. It's not fantastic. And overall, what this is your affordable ThinkPad for those of you who don't want to spend $1,500 on a higher-end model, but you want the sturdy build quality, you want the upgradable internals, particularly the fantastic keyboard right here. And finally, in the E-Series, a not bad-looking TN panel if you're going to have one. Now, sure, if you spend some more money, you can get yourself an IPS panel on a Lenovo product or on something else. But for those where every penny counts, I mean, this is something you can get into starting around $520, or realistically, if you want to make sure you get the 5th generation Broadwell, that sort of thing, $550. Windows 10 ready, might have Windows 10 installed pretty soon, in fact, because Lenovo is already shipping these with Windows 10. And if you move up to around $750, you get pretty respectable specs. So that's the Lenovo ThinkPad E450, your basic, affordable, no-nonsense ThinkPad. Not much money, but you get the usual really durable build quality, the matte black rectangle look for those who are ThinkPad people and like that really good keyboard. Sorry, no backlighting there. Decent display. It used to be the E-Series had really abysmal TN panels. Now they still have TN panels, but they have improved a lot, so you don't have to spend forever going back and forth with the display to try to find that sweet spot where contrast is good. Upgradable internals also make this something that you can live with for a couple of years to come if you want to put a faster hard drive in there, a bigger hard drive, an SSD drive. If you want to upgrade your RAM, you can do those things. And you got built-in Ethernet too. It's not bad for the price. It's pretty darn nice. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our YouTube channel.